All right, welcome to the Synchronicity Show. It is your host, Kevin Wathey, and today on the podcast, I am sitting down with Miss Alyse Parker. She is a public figure, life coach, and change maker in the personal development space. She envisions a world where all humans have the tools and support we need to release past conditioning, remember who we truly are, and align with our soul's purpose. Through documenting her personal journey on social media, hosting retreats, and online coaching programs, Alyse has helped millions of women rise above their challenges and consciously create their reality. Alyse, welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and to dive in with you today.
I am as well. And just kind of going off the conversation, post technical difficulties, diving into the conversation just before we hopped on here. I'm really excited to kind of peel back the layers of your story, talk about how you got to where you are today and really what being a creator, an online course creator, a business owner, and what that looks like for you and how you really got here. So with that kind of overarching idea in mind, let's take it back to the beginning to start. Looking back, reflecting back, what did you initially want to be when you grew up?
Ooh, I mean, if we're going back really far, I wanted to be a veterinarian at one point, an architect at one point. And then once I got over that, I was like, you know what? I am here to live my best life and to support others in doing the same, which I feel like a lot of humans can relate to that.
What was it about the veterinarian path or the architecture path that initially drew you in before you had this, I need to help people realization?
Oh, that's a really good question, because I think there's a little bit in each of those that I actually am carrying through in the work that I do now. With a veterinarian, it was like, oh, I love animals. They're so cute. They're so sweet. And to be able to support them and living healthy animal lives. And then with architecture, it was this creativity and this design and like this detail-oriented element. And I feel like both of those things today are coming through.
Mm-hmm. You're almost the architect of your own life, but you're an architect of the courses you've now created and your ability to help other women. You've created that. You've been the architect of that. And I feel like that's an overlooked element that a lot of people don't see is all of your experiences, and this is for anyone listening, all of your experiences up to wherever you're at in your life presently have uniquely shaped you to be ready for where you're presently at. So there's no like, that was a bad idea, or I shouldn't have done this, or that was a bad path to go down. That's all shaped you into who you are. And I know speaking from personal experience, some of the worst things that have happened to me have also been some of the best when I've had the time to reflect and actually deconstruct what it was that happened. So I want to kind of segue in, because being young, being successful, having the amount of success that you've had up to this point in your life, there had to have been some turning points where you were like, oh, that was bad at the time, but now looking back, I definitely grew from that moment. So what maybe the biggest one or the biggest piece that stands out that was a aha moment reflecting back, but at the time you didn't know how to maybe surmount the odds, so to speak?
What a good question. Well, I think one of the pivotal moments in my life was when I was still in college and I was kind of just doing the thing, my parents' society were like, this is the path, like be grateful for it. And I'm like, oh, I'm grateful. And, I'm not really feeling like these classes in school are supporting me in what feels so alive in my soul. And so I was going against that intuitive knowing of this isn't the path for me for like a year, a couple of years. And it felt so tense. Like I started to experience anxiety and frustration and just this overall daunting feeling of like, I'm literally walking a path that is not for me right now. And it feels so wrong every single day. And then eventually the tension like grew and grew and grew. And I dropped out of school and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
You said something there that I want to touch on. You said your parents decided. You were almost conditioned in a way to think that this is the way to operate. This is the way to live my life. What does that stem from? Was that something that you were forced into or pushed into or kind of funneled into from an early age? Like this is the way your life needs to be? Or was that more of an overarching understanding of how your life should be?
Yeah, I definitely feel like that path was laid out for me. And it was interesting because when I was really, really young, I remember my parents saying like, you can be anything you want to be and you can do anything you want to do, which was beautiful. But then it was interesting once I started to have conversations with them like, hey, I think I'm going to drop out of school. That's something that I want to do. Then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, you can't do that. And I was like, I thought I could do and be anything I want to be. But then all of a sudden their conditioning came in and was being projected onto me. And what I know now is that they had good intentions. They wanted me to be healthy and happy and successful. And they had a certain view of what that looked like. And they did not know that there was another way.
So how did you find the courage to pursue an alternate path?
Yeah, so it started when I went to this festival. It was a fruit festival where everyone ate fruit. And I went to this festival and there was a workshop being held. And the facilitator of this workshop said this one sentence that changed my life forever, which was, you do not need the approval and acceptance of anyone in order to pursue your unique dreams. And that really stuck with me. I was like, oh, you mean this whole time that I've been trying to compromise with my parents and get them to understand my perspective and have them approve of this alternative path that I knew was for me. Wait, you mean I don't need to do that? I can just do the thing? And so that was the point where I started to get resourceful and look through this lens of, yes, I can.
Did that also initially like lift a weight off of you, or did you feel like you were able to now actually be and do whatever it was that you wanted to be?
Yeah, for sure. I think that kind of, like you said, like took the weight off, like took that veil away from me and allowed me to see, oh, I really can. Like before I was just thinking I have to get their okay. I have to get them to say yes, which was like, oh, okay, basically living my life with them being them being the people steering. And when I heard that sentence, I was like, wait, I'm literally the creator. I'm the one steering the ship.
You were essentially living your life through the eyes of someone else. You were doing things for someone else's enjoyment or for someone else's opinion of yourself rather than for your own opinion of yourself.
And thankfully not too long. Like the tension inside of me grew so strong, so fast. And then I heard that sentence and then I was like, all right, it's go time.
What was your first thought then after that? Where did you initially want to go? Now that the shackles had been broken, what was the first step that you took or that you thought of to go into?
Yeah. So for me, it was a 180-degree change. And I knew that what I wanted was to move to Hawaii and to live in a van and to get dreadlocks in my hair and to be this raw vegan fruit eating hippie and get healthy and help other people do the same. And so I sold like 90% of my belongings and I booked a one-way flight. And I was like, I had a conversation with my parents where I was really anchored into, I don't need you to say yes in order for me to do this. And I had actually already booked my flight at that time and was already like clearing out my home. And so then I had the conversation with them and they were definitely disappointed. And they were like, we need you to know that like when you make this decision that we're no longer supporting you in any capacity financially. Like, we were here to support you in going to school, getting the education, the white picket fence, the whole thing. And now we're not. We still love you. We want you to be safe and healthy, but like, that's cut off. And I was like, cool, I'm steering my ship now.
What did that feel like to you?
It felt like a little bit like a letdown, but I truly was so anchored into, I don't need this anymore. And like, I actually talked myself up before this conversation with my parents. And I was like, okay, self, if they literally cut you out of their life and that's how serious they are about this, you're still going to be okay. You have to do what's best for you. And so I think that prep was really needed.
Well, it sounds like you knew their response before going into it. Like you were preparing yourself because you knew how they would respond. Why? I mean, first off, tipping my hat to you, because in order to do that at a young age and be like, okay, it doesn't matter, I don't care, because I know, personally speaking, that there's been similar discussions like with myself, like you must go to school and do this kind of thought process and kind of an older, more traditional way of thinking. So you were okay with that uncertainty. How and why though?
I think what's interesting is that, like, when I made this shift and I left and went across the Pacific Ocean, there were so many people after I did that who said, you know, how did you do this? How were you so brave and courageous to do this? And how did you get out of your comfort zone? And what was so clear to me in that moment when everybody asked that was, it wasn't really my comfort zone. It was uncomfortable as fuck. Like, I was hating my life and feeling anxious every single day. And yet that's what people consider our comfort zone. And so really the pressure just built so strong that I felt like I had no other option.
I love that you reframe that though. And I was almost going to pause you because I love that reframe where the stereotypical or like cliche saying is like, get comfortable being uncomfortable. But then when you actually boil it down, you following someone else's path is uncomfortable as fuck. And by doing that, you're conditioning yourself to say that this should be comfortable. I should be okay here. But then by actually doing what you want to do, which is technically what the rest of the society or the world views as uncomfortable, was actually something that's more in alignment with you as an individual at that time than the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
How does that, now reflecting back on that, how do you, like, you've now connected the dots, obviously, and a lot of people haven't yet. So how in the moment, or how reflecting back now, would you approach it differently again if you had to do it again? Or how now reflecting back on it, I don't know what I'm trying to say, because I'm really interested and curious though. But it's like, you had that epiphany that, okay, where I was living was uncomfortable. This is more in alignment with me. How did that come up? How did you actually realize and recognize that?
It was in the moment when someone was asking me, like, how did you get out of your comfort zone? Like, I'm so stuck in my comfort zone. And I just had this moment and it clicked. And I was like, I wasn't comfortable. And then it like led me to ask the other person, like, are you really comfortable? Like, why do we call this a comfort zone? It's almost like that in itself is some sort of brainwashing or conditioning to like hold individuals back from doing the thing that is so aligned. And like, yes, there are challenges, right? Yes, there's roadblocks and obstacles and things that come up when we do the thing that is so for us that maybe we have no idea how to do, but we're just like following our heart. For sure, there's challenges, but there's this level of aliveness and like, I'm so committed to learning this lesson and overcoming this challenge. And it becomes part of your character and your strength. And I think that's really important to see it through that lens.
So now going to Hawaii, it's more in alignment with you, but technically it's still uncomfortable because it's uncertain and you're not really sure how you're going to be charting the path or what the future looks like. What was there ever a point on that journey where you were like, okay, I made the wrong decision? Or was there ever a time where you like second guessed yourself? Or was it always you were straight in from day one?
I mean, I was pretty straight in. Like I might be more of the minority in that realm, but you know, there's something to be said about the Hawaiian Islands where it's like the islands either accept you or they don't. Like you'll go to this place and you'll just experience a ton of bad luck as if the island is literally trying to get you off of it because your energy is not meant to be there. And I think I experienced a little bit of that for the first month that I was there. Like all of my technology was breaking, which as somebody who is trying to start their online business, that wasn't really the best thing. All these different like little things happened. And I remember there being a moment or two where I was like, man, this is really making it difficult. But at the same time, I was just so committed. And it was a different feeling than forcing yourself to stick with something that's not for you, but actually like leaning into challenges for something that you know is so for you is actually much easier.
Tell me about a time when you were on the islands where you had just like a complete realization or revelation that you are now on the right path. Is there a specific moment that you can think of?
Oh my gosh. The moment that I got off of the plane and I was in an outdoor airport and the humidity felt so good. And I just felt this feeling of home that I had never felt anywhere. I grew up on the East Coast.
Were you on Oahu?
I was on the Big Island.
Big Island?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was that immediate knowing of like, wow, this is a different feeling.
Mm-hmm. How does that contrast to growing up on the East Coast?
Oh my gosh. I didn't even know that feeling existed. Like I was just so in this structured paradigm on the East Coast, like doing that whole like East Coast way of being super rigid and like sticking to the status quo and like, oh, all of that I wasn't even aware that I was going to feel so free and at home until that happened.
So you show up on the Big Island, you rent a van, you are living out of the van on the Big Island, and you're starting your online business. What were the initial steps you took when building out that business?
Yeah. So what's interesting is actually when I first landed there, I lived on this raw vegan community farm. So I didn't get a van for a couple of months in. I was working in the garden, picking fruit in exchange for living in this little hut. And the internet speed was so slow. I was in the middle of the freaking jungle and it would take 18 hours for a YouTube video to upload. And I was so dedicated. And sometimes the internet would break and it would cancel when it was like 16 hours in and I would just do it again. And this was like a normal thing, but I was just so committed. And so what it looked like for me in the very beginning was just YouTube. I was just committed to sharing my journey. It was like my personal diary. And I had no real intentions of like starting a business per se. I just knew that I wanted to create YouTube videos and I wanted to be a health coach or a life coach. But honestly, at that point in time, I was like 20, 21 years old. To me, the idea of business, like I just had this visual of like old men in like suit jackets and it was very like sterile feeling. I was like, I don't like business. I just want to create and make videos and help people. And so that's what I was doing day in, day out. Then I moved into the van, going to coffee shops to upload videos, still super slow Wi-Fi. And I was just living life and creating content in the beginning.
Do you think that anyone who's been to the islands knows there's an energy around the islands? Do you think that the Hawaiian island energy that you were embodying at this point allowed you to create on a different level than if you were still on the East Coast?
Oh my gosh, for sure. So I started my YouTube channel, I think about a year before I went to Hawaii. And I think when I got there, I had around 2,000 subscribers. I was living in Georgia at the time, kind of near Atlanta. And I was just like, in this like typical apartment, just like showing what's in my refrigerator and the food that I eat. And then I moved to Hawaii, and all of a sudden the environment matched what I felt inside and what I was already sharing. And so there was more of this cohesive, like immersive experience that people could tune into.
What did that then do for not only your content, but the engagement with your subscribers too?
Yeah, it shot through the roof. Within a couple months of being there, maybe even the first month, I had 10,000 subscribers. And then I actually got on food stamps when I first got to the island. For some reason, this was like so foreign to my East Coast self. But when I got to the farm, the people who owned it, they were like, "Hey, do you have a consistent source of income?" And I was like, "No, I'm charging like $75 a month for a full coaching package." And they were like, "Okay, well, a lot of people in this area will get on food stamps just to help get them through." And I was like, "I think my parents wouldn't like this, but I'm going to give myself 6 months on food stamps so that I can eat and live. And I'm going to focus primarily on YouTube. And if for some reason by the end of 6 months, I'm not making enough to provide for myself, then I will get a separate job."
Why was the first thing you thought of that your parents wouldn't like this?
Because it was like this whole, it was against everything that they were about, which was go to school, get an education, get a job. And here I was giving myself this runway time of 6 months to live my dream life and make videos about it. Right. Mm-hmm. So it was just like a little against the way that they saw for me. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the 6 months, I had a viral video of me brushing out my dreadlocks. And all of a sudden at that time, I had 50,000 subscribers, and overnight I had 350,000. And so that was kind of where I realized, oh, this is a business now. And now I'm providing for myself.
Didn't feel as sterile then, did it?
No, I was like, this is dope. I can create and earn money. What a concept.
When you first started out, was the creation of the videos, were you strictly doing it to monetize them, or were you strictly creating to give and to create from a place that was self-fulfilling in and of itself?
Yeah, this is a super important question. And I feel like my answer is really important for anyone tuning in. It was purely to create and purely to support. And what was funny was that when I got to the island a couple months in, I had a friend ask me, they were like, how much do you make on YouTube? And I had 10,000 subscribers at the time. And I said, you can make money on YouTube? I had no idea. And so that was how much I was just doing this, just because I wanted to help anybody that I could.
Do you think that, because I know now things have progressed a bit more in terms of online content creation, YouTubers, vloggers, so on and so forth. Do you think that if you had initially started out with the intention of making money from the content, you would even be anywhere near the place you are today?
Absolutely not. Like so absolutely not. It's just, it does something different to the creativity process when you're coming from this place of, I need this to be profitable. It's like there's such a strong attachment there. And then you're thinking about that as you're creating, of like, I need this to get views. I need this to make money. And it does something different. And also other people can feel that.
It changes like the energetics of the content itself. In sales, this is like, anyone listening who's in sales, this would be like the equivalent of commission breath, where you're so desperate for the sale that it comes off as if you're needy, and then the sale doesn't get made. And when you flip the script on it, when it's from a sales perspective, it'd almost be the prospect needs to sell you rather than you selling them. Now it's you're creating content for others rather than you creating content to get something. It's not transactional. It's very value based. And I speak about this a lot, but it's approaching business from a different mindset altogether. And I relate business to meditation quite a bit, because meditation, if you're not an avid practitioner, it's often confused as well. People think of meditation as this like shutting off of your mind. And until you die, that's not physically possible. You're human. You can't shut off your mind. The result of meditation is a quieter mind. Yes. But what's the action? The action's a single point of focus. So now if we translate that mentality to business, what's the result of business? It's making an income. But what is the action of business? It's providing value to someone else. So now when you focus on value creation, it's no longer B2B, business to business, or B2C, business to client or consumer. Business is P2P, person to person. And when you connect with people on a deeper way, one that's value-based, now the income that comes from that is like it's a direct result of the value that you've provided, not the end all be all, the means in and of itself kind of mentality.
Yeah. Wow. That is such a dope comparison. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. One day it dawned on me and I was like, business is like meditation. Let's break this down. And then I had this whole like aha moment and compared it. And overnight our business completely changed, because it was no longer chasing something for the sake of making money. It was chasing something for the sake of providing value. And guess what happened? When you provide more value, the direct result, your income increases as well. So it's changing that energetic exchange. And when you focus on helping people and you focus on providing value, that's when the entire game changes, not just in the business realm, but in all realms of life, in all walks of life, especially in content creation, where you have a direct connection to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it feels better for both people. It feels better for everyone involved.
Because it's not a forced transaction, or you're not trying to demand someone's attention. You're allowing that, you're commanding attention by being uniquely and authentic to yourself, rather than trying to demand it. And it's the same thing. Like, it's like, click my link, buy this thing, go here, get the thing, and go and link in my bio, comment below. And instead it's an organic, I would say organic gets confused too, but I would say a more authentic approach to actually creating and understanding on an interpersonal level.
Yeah. And I think that it can get really tricky when it really feels like you are in a place where you need the outcome. So in my situation, I had that runway time for myself, right? Where I had the food stamps and I could do my thing. But if I didn't have that, then there would be this grasping for the finances, right? And so I recently heard a term, it was like a couple months ago, I heard somebody talk about bridge jobs. Have you ever heard of that?
No, but I'm assuming like the connecting between the two.
Yeah. It's like if you're at a job, you absolutely hate it. And then you have this vision of like running your own business and helping more people and abundance and all of that. But it feels like quite far. Then there's this job in between that's like a bit more aligned than where you're currently at, and being able to do that so that you're less stressed when you're not working and you have more spaciousness to start making progress towards your dream career.
Interesting. How do you feel? So obviously the runway that you had created for yourself allowed you to create from a place that wasn't grasping. What is if you were to start over, or if you were to give advice to someone just starting out in kind of the content creation, wanting to get into YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it ends up being today, what would be your advice to someone just getting started? How would you go about that?
Oh my gosh, I have so much advice, so many things. I don't feel like I would have changed anything about the way that I did it. And I understand that I have a very unique story in that sense. For anyone who's starting out, like kind of going back to the bridge job that I was just sharing about, I think that's really important. Like every now and then I'll have certain clients who are so stressed in their current position that when they are home, they literally do not have the bandwidth and energy to start taking steps to create content on social media, on whatever platform it is. And what I feel is like the most supportive thing is to put yourself in a position where you're in a more life-giving experience, Maybe that's getting paid more. Maybe that's just something where you're around employees and coworkers who are more like-minded to you. Whatever that may be. But I think we all have those little ideas and like inklings of like, you know what, this would probably be a better position for me. And I think we shut that down. And sometimes I think people shut that down because they're so connected to their dream career that they don't even want to take the in-between step. And the reality is the in-between step has its own learning that is going to propel you towards your dream career. I think this is something that's super interesting is like the version of you that's in your job that you fucking hate is not the version of you that's going to snap your fingers and immediately have your dream career. Like there are stepping stones in between, and we have to lean into the next best thing.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree, because it's almost like, I mean, look at online marketing right now. It's very much I want the quick fix. I want the latest tactic. I want the speed and efficiency, but that then negates not only the understanding that you're an ever expanding and growing individual, but it also negates the fact that there are elements that you need to learn before you can actually become the person that you need to be in order to embody who it is that you want to be, which is a crazy thing if we deconstruct that. Like, becoming successful isn't a matter of you, especially in a content creation. Look at that. Look at that. Cheers. It is becoming a business owner, becoming an entrepreneur, creating content. It's often viewed as this like overnight thing. It just happened. It's like you only see the tip of the iceberg though. You don't see all of the transformation that occurred in order to become that person that is able to do that. And without the transformation, you're not going to be able to embody who that person is, because you won't have became the individual capable of having a following, of creating the content, of growing to that level. And another thing that I would say to that too is you also need to be willing to put the content out there that nobody watches, to write the emails that nobody reads, to send the messages that nobody engages with. Because what you're doing is you're slowly building who you are as a person. You're removing the layers of who you thought you were, and now you're learning who you're going to become and that person that you're going to step into. That right there is like unlocking your true potential, case in point, without anything. So looking at your own journey now, what were some of the pillars or pivotal moments of where you needed to release who you were before in order to become who you are now?
Okay, so here's one that maybe there's some people that can relate to, is in the very, very beginning, there's like a certain archetype that's like, I just want to help people and I don't honestly care about the money. I don't want to have 100,000 or 1,000,000 followers. I don't need that many views. Like, I don't need that much money. I just want to have like a simple life and feel good and help people. That's one archetype, right? And that's where I was when I first got to Hawaii. And I realized, I read this book, You're a Badass at Making Money. I'm sure many of your listeners have read this. If not, it's a good one. And I realized, oh, I'm holding myself back because I'm actually demonizing money. And so I had to release this whole like airy fairy woo woo concept of like, I wish that money didn't exist and like I could just help people and we could have a barter system. That was one realization of like, okay, I need to let that go and actually embrace. I had this mantra of like, my life is easier and more fun with an abundance of money. And I would repeat that to myself like every day for like a year.
What was the biggest, when you stepped into the new mindset of money is not evil, what did that do for you as a business owner, as a creator, as someone embodying who it is you're trying to give to others as well?
Yeah, I think what it did for me was it activated this like entrepreneurial part of my brain, which was like, oh my gosh, I can monetize everything that I love doing and all of my creations. And so I started to look at everything that I enjoyed doing and all of the ways that I was supporting people and wanted to support others through that lens of, okay, and can I also monetize that? And that was kind of a big thing, right? In starting a business.
I want to touch on that too, because you hit on a point where so many people get to. They're like, I want to create, but I don't want to make money. Part of me understands that, where they've confused. Money is not the root of all evil. It's the love of money that is the root of evil. So you can engage with money from an abundance mindset, because when you think about it, what are we conditioned to think? Money is finite and your time is infinite. But it's actually the opposite. Your time is finite and money is infinite. So when you now create from a place of abundance, in terms of money is abundant and money is infinite, now you have to go one step deeper and recognize that what is money? Money is technically energy. Money is technically an exchange. It's a transaction in which we're placing a predetermined value on something, which, if we get really into the weeds here, doesn't actually even exist. Like 5% of money is actually in circulation. The rest is a number on a computer screen that we communally agree is the same price. But when you recognize that, the price of something determines the value of it, because value is based on the perception of the individual receiving it. So if you perceive your own self-limiting mindset that money is not good or money is not what you need, what you're actually doing is a disservice to the people that you're trying to help, because you're not allowing them to place value onto your product, program, service, offering, content, because you're not charging them for it. Because by not charging them, it now becomes free. And what do people say? Free is cheap. Free is free. Free is not something that is worth my value or worth my time. But now, and it's funny because we do with one of our coaching programs, we do group calls, and we have a free version, and then we have one that's $50 a week. You have no idea the engagement of one that's $50 a week, and then the one that's free. The one that's free, people are just like, it's free, I don't have to go. $50 a week, they're like knocking at the door to get into it because of that. And it's that limiting belief that you're actually doing your clients a disservice by not charging.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That last part you just touched on was such a big learning for me a couple years ago, where I was like, wait, you people in my community, you say that you want something more affordable, and then I provide that, but then you don't show up for it. And then when I provide something that's higher ticket with more accountability and support, everyone is all in. And that was like a huge breakthrough for me of like, you know what? I need to anchor into that, because what I'm here for is to support others in creating lasting transformation. And in order for that to happen, there must be both people showing up, right? Mm-hmm. The guide and the individual who's like, I'm ready to learn. Yeah. So you touched on something so powerful there.
And to go another step deeper with that, so you're doing, there's like a value equation. So by creating something that's higher ticket, there's more accountability. That's what's actually going to provide transformation. And in doing so, you need to get buy-in from someone for that. Yes. Now I can hear the skeptics now saying like, okay, great. Well, every time I speak to someone, they say, oh, it's too much money. Oh, I can't afford that. Oh, it's this, it's that. But what you're actually doing is you're creating that doubt, that uncertainty, because you don't have a belief in what you're charging yourself yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I ran into those roadblocks too. And every single time I would launch a new offering, there would be like a little bit of that come up. And then it would provide this opportunity for me to explore that and process that within myself, to anchor into my worth and my curriculum's worth and the results that have taken place. And it would be less and less and less as time went on. But the reality is like entrepreneurship, I'm sure you've heard this before and feel this too, is like, it is a freaking personal development journey, where whenever we are creating an offering, whenever we are creating some form of content, there are these limiting beliefs and there are these emotions and these parts that come up that are outdated, and they're coming up to be healed so we can be present with them, work through it, release it, and then expand into our potential.
I want to double click on how you overcame that limiting belief in regards to money, or how you've continued to grow into understanding and recognizing your worth. But before I do, another piece that I want to touch on as well is that when you say you do understand your worth, say you do know and you're comfortable with charging the amount that it is for your product, program, or service, whatever it ends up being. Here's another self-development or self-learning element is when you're actually then promoting or selling that piece. The traditional way that you're taught to sell something is very much like you're going to bat with someone head to head until you convince them that your way is the right way, which is actually creating sales pressure on the individual. But if you actually learn how to communicate effectively from a place that's rooted in human psychology, now you're able to paint the picture of what it is you're able to help someone with, going back to value creation, going back to actually helping an individual. And when you shift that, you will be shocked at when that clicks, you don't get objections. You're not getting people to tell you that it's too expensive. They don't have time. They don't see the worth in it. I can't afford this right now. Those all go out the window because you've shifted the scales on the value equation. Now what you're charging, they don't commoditize you, essentially. Now it's not, hey, I get this for this. Let's go to your competitors because they charge less. Now it's, you're the only person that supplies this because of the way that you paint that picture. That's a very different distinction from one side to the other. And that was and is probably one of the biggest learning moments for myself was, here's an outdated way of thinking. Here's an outdated way of doing things. The minute you make that shift in yourself, door is open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. Like, again, coming back to this theme of if something feels hard and it's just not working for you, then what is the belief system and what is like the underlying pattern there that you get to clear out and step into one that is more serving for humanity?
So let me play devil's advocate here for a second. So, so if it is hard, how do I phrase this?
Ooh, yeah, we're going to get into a good, juicy conversation.
So if it is hard, how do we differentiate between hard as good or hard as bad? And because growth comes from discomfort, growth comes from uncertainty, growth comes from things that are difficult in an essence. So how do you differentiate between what is actually difficult and what is you ramming your head into the wall?
Okay, so I love this. And what I personally have noticed for myself and clients is that the body knows. So the intuition has the insight of if this is for me or if this is not for me. If this is for me to learn and overcome, or if this is not for me and this is just not the path, not the method for me, and I don't have a learning here. Does that make sense? So it's like, here's another way to say it. If anyone has ever been in a position where somebody wants to be intimate with you, and then that feeling comes up and it's like, I actually don't want that right now. It's that feeling, accessing that feeling of like, is this for me? Is this here to support my growth or is it not? And I think that oftentimes we'll try to fucking think our way through it, like pros and cons. Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? Well, maybe it's hard because it's here from, and it's like, oh, well, what if we just listen to the body? That's what I've noticed. I'm curious your initial thought on that.
I would say the same, but I would also say that there comes... okay, I like this conversation because there comes a point where part of that thought process can be used as an excuse as well, where, oh, it's not in alignment. It didn't happen today. So, it just isn't right for me. But then years go by and you're still in the same position because you haven't actually taken action and hit the ground and saying, yeah, it's going to suck. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but you need to recognize, like, the best example I can give is when I wrote the last course, the Mindful Method 3.0. One of the not hardest, but one of the most in-depth training platforms and programs that I've ever written ever in my life. Anything. It's like over 500,000 words if you look at the transcripts and like break it down.
Wow.
I wrote that in under 40 days, which is absolutely absurd when you think about it. It was insanely hard. I was working from 4 a.m. until like late at night, and I just went and went and went and went and went. And it was hard, but it was in alignment with what I was doing.
Okay.
Which
yes.
It felt as if I was in, like, if we want to go like energy wise, I was in like source energy. I was in flow. I was allowing that to work through me because I was open to the possibility of it happening. The only time that you say, oh, it needs to take X amount of time, that's only a limiting belief that you're putting on yourself. But if you actually break it down, if you're in alignment, there's no time limit you can add to it because it's just happening.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to add one more thing to this topic, which is the way that I like to come at it is like, I think this is a quote or a mantra from Susie Batiste, which is, I choose an easy life where everything is easy. But what I mean by this is I choose an easy life where even the challenges that come up, even the curveballs, even the perceived time constraint or having a blockage or a limiting belief or someone saying no to joining the program or whatever, even all of that is easy because I'm here present in the moment, awake and aware of what's happening and grateful for the whole journey. Does that make sense? So it's like, I'm choosing this whole thing. I'm choosing for this to be fun and easy, even the like dark parts.
What you've done is you've fallen in love with the process. So now we're not striving for an end goal. I like where this is going. So now you're not placing an external importance on something. You're focusing on the internal fulfillment that then provides you.
It's both. It's holding the vision. Like it's the masculine and feminine of like holding the vision and the roadmap to get there, all the tangible action steps, the whole structure, the timeline, like of that whole vision, and knowing that it's inevitable that you're going to get there, that is already, this is like how I like to see it, is it's already happened in the future. I'm already earning this much money in the future. I'm already supporting this many people. This program has already come out in the future. It's like holding that in one hand. And then here I am on this little journey. It's going to have twists and turns, and I'm holding that vision and I'm present in the moment.
It makes me think of, and I brought this up, this is like one of the most, it's been on my mind a lot recently, and it's been months since I read this book, but Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he talks about the difference between inputs and outputs, and how the vast majority of people will set a goal, but only focus on the output, only focus on the end thing, only focus on where they want to go. But then the inputs, the things that you're not in control of an output. That's a result. Yeah. But you're only in control of the input, the action steps, the things that you do every single day. So the argument would be, if you fix the inputs, if you fix what you're doing on a daily basis, and you forget about the goal, will you still achieve the goal? And the answer is yes, because you're doing the things that allow you to get there. But if you don't ever reverse engineer it and figure out what you need to be doing in order to accomplish that goal, it doesn't matter what you do on the day-to-day because it's not aligning with where you want to go. So I completely, it's both. It's taking the big external, reverse engineering it to the internal, and then taking massive fucking action from the internal to then get back to the external.
100%. And I think exactly what you're sharing is a message for all of the dreamers who are not doers. There's got to be that balance of like, I have the dream and I'm going to backtrack, or as you say, reverse engineer, and take all of those action steps that are going to get me to that place.
So walk me through how your most recent, actually the program you've been running for about 2 years now, but walk me through your process of how you initially created it, if you reverse engineered, or what that process looked like.
Yeah, I did reverse engineer. I think that's literally what I've done with everything in this company the entire time, and my life with life goals. But my program, Alignment Accelerator, actually was birthed because I was just doing my thing, sharing my journey on YouTube and documenting my life. And there was a lot of people who were like, dude, how did you do this? Right. Just like there were people in my personal life asking me, there were people online saying, how did you do this at such a young age? Like, what practices, what steps, what mindset stuff, what was it that helped you do this? Because I want to do this in my own unique way. And so it was those questions coming up again and again where I was like, you know what? I bet that I could backtrack what were the most important things in my journey that allowed me to do this. And so Alignment Accelerator is a 12-week experience where I have pinpointed certain mindset practices, emotional practices, dream casting, like getting clear on all the details. There's also a lesson called energy tracking, where you're auditing all the things in your life, content consumption, the relationships that you're in, the substances you're consuming, like your input and output of what's going on and what is pulling your life force energy, draining your life force energy and holding you back, and what is fueling you, and how can we adjust accordingly to create more life giving so that we have more energy to put towards our dreams. So with all of that, I was just like kind of sitting in solitude in Hawaii. And I was like, what has got me to where I am today? And then I put it in this specific order of how those specific practices supported me and how I imagined it would support someone who's starting from square one. And it worked really well, and it continues to work. So that's kind of like the birthing, how I created it.
Is there anything, so someone starting or creating a course presently, what would be maybe your 3 biggest takeaways, other than reverse engineering everything that you need to do to go into it? But what would be your 3 biggest pointers in creating and launching your first ever course online?
Messy action, for sure. Like, chill out with all of the tiny, tiny little details.
It's never going to be perfect. Let me add that in there. It will never be perfect. No matter how many times you relaunch and recreate, it will never be perfect.
No, because we are always, as the creator, we are always evolving and learning what's working, what's not working, and what is the next best thing. And then we get to implement that every single time. So you're totally right. There's no perfection. So take messy action. One thing I would also suggest is actually chill out on looking at what everybody else is doing. This has been like a constant thing throughout my entire journey as an entrepreneur is I don't tune in to what a lot of people are doing or even like what's trending. Like I'm so focused on what feels true for me. So I think in the position of starting to create your own course, it would be stop going to all the workshops, stop hiring all the coaches, and trust that you know enough right now to take the first step and to create the first iteration. And then you can expand on it from there.
So we got 2. What's number 3?
We got 2. Oh, what's number 3? Oh, man.
I got one if you want me to chime in for you here.
Yeah, chime in.
It's in addition to kind of an overlap between the 2, but it would be a recognition that everything that you've done in your life has uniquely prepared you to create what it is you're wanting to create. And stop looking for external validation because it's your life and you are uniquely qualified to speak on the topics that light you up because of your experience.
Ooh, yes, this is so good. Thank you for chiming in, because I think this is huge, is knowing that if you have this calling to make this creation, it's because it's for you. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's this huge outdated paradigm of we need all the qualifications, all the schooling, all the certifications, all the things. And I think that creates a lot of procrastination and perfectionism and holding ourselves back from our true potential. So like anchoring into, like you just said, anchoring into you are enough. Everything that you have, all of the wisdom from this lifetime, from past lifetimes, from any courses that you've done, like you've got it. And anchoring into that every single day as you're in that creation process.
1000% agree with you there. All right. Well, Alyse, I appreciate your time. I have a couple rapid fire questions to wrap up the episode today. You ready?
I'm ready.
The first one being is, if you could attribute your success to one specific thing, what would it be?
Trusting myself above everything else.
What is the biggest mistake you've ever made, and what did you learn from it?
The biggest mistake I ever made was following somebody else's protocol and methodology. And what I learned from it was coming full circle back to trusting myself.
If you could spend 1 hour with anyone, past, present, or future, who would it be and why?
Ooh, Mother Teresa is the first that came to mind. I just have some like soul connection or some interest in what would it be like. I think also we're both under 5 feet tall. So there's a curiosity of what it would be like to hang with a little person like me.
In your opinion, last but not least here, in your opinion, what is the single most important thing someone can do to live a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life?
Practice being more present and grateful for what is here in this very moment.
I love it. Alyse, Thank you so much for your time today and for coming on the show. I want to open the floor. Is there anything you'd like to say or add before we wrap up?
Well, first off, thank you for having me. This has been fun. We've like segued in so many different little areas, which is awesome. Anything else I'd like to say? I think that something that's been present for me recently, my own learning, is that I've personally been practicing dropping into my physical body before creating any content, before writing any emails, responding to any DMs, before showing up for work and on technology for the day. And also doing this multiple times throughout the day is like just checking in, like, hold on, where am I coming from? Am I coming from my mind, or am I coming from my body and my heart? And so I feel called to share that for anyone else who's like creating content and like just getting so stuck in like the overthinking and like, it feels so hard. It's like just pause, and dropping into your body and being present can help set the stage.
Mm-hmm. I feel that too. And I feel anytime that it's ever forced, or you're trying to force the creation of something, just pause, go for a walk out in nature, go for a walk outside, get moving, go do something, and let the creative juices flow, rather than trying to force them to come out.
100%. Yes.
I love it. Well, Alyse, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, it's Kevin here. And before I let you go, I wanted to let you know that the complete show notes for this episode, as well as any other, can be found at kevinwathey.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a short review on Apple Podcasts. I love reading the reviews, and they're often the tipping point in helping us book some very hard to reach guests. Now, if you want to or would like to receive a weekly email from me called the Weekly Mindful Memo, head over to kevinwathey.com/VIP to subscribe. By signing up, you'll receive exclusive behind-the-scenes access and be the first to know about upcoming episodes, retreats, and more direct to your inbox. Again, you can sign up to receive the weekly Mindful Memo by going to kevinwathey.com/VIP. Thank you for listening. Much love, and have a wonderful rest of your day.